You're the janitor. This is a staff meeting, not a supply closet. Nathan Kessler didn't look at her when he said it. He just flicked his pen toward the door, like she was another smudge on the glass wall. Isabel Rivera stood still, a mop handle in one hand, her cleaning cart behind her, and eyes that didn't blink. "I'm aware," she said, calm as polished marble. Laughter sputtered around the table, thin, nervous. Some avoided eye contact. One intern shifted her chair as if the second-hand shame might stain her. Nathan smirked, pleased with the effect. "I suggest you stay in your lane." Isabel didn't argue, but before she left, she reached into her cart and pulled out a small leather folder, black, worn, with initials etched in gold on the corner. She didn't open it, just looked at it for a second too long, then slid it back beneath a rag. If you think that folder held cleaning supplies, you're wrong. And if you think she walked away defeated, you really need to subscribe now. What's about to unfold will flip this office upside down. She exited slowly, the wheels of her cart whispering along the tile, the room behind her falling awkwardly silent. No slammed doors, no theatrics. Just a woman walking away from a room full of men who thought they owned the world. She took the elevator down to the lobby. 3 floors of glass, marble, and abstract art no one understood. Her back ached. Her gloves smelled like ammonia in old leather. But her posture never dipped. Maya was waiting on the bench near the fountain, swinging her legs and sipping from a juice box. Isabel handed her a granola bar and smoothed her daughter's hair with hands still damp from scrub water. "Did he yell at you again?" Maya asked, already chewing. "No, just used his usual tone." "Why does he talk like that?" "Because he thinks no one's listening." Isabel smiled as she said it, but her jaw was tight. She glanced up at the mezzanine level, where Nathan leaned over the railing and chuckled with another exec, still smug from his performance. "Where are you watching from?" "Because from where I'm standing, this isn't about mops or meetings. It's about power. And Nathan just picked the wrong woman to humiliate." Back in the janitor's closet, Isabel locked the door behind her. She pulled off her gloves, sat on an upside-down bucket, and powered on her old tablet. The screen flickered, but the message was still there. From Elias Vale. Subject: confirmed body. Proxy shares transferred. Board is blind. You'll have full control by Thursday. I'll be nearby, but this is your show now. She read it twice. Not because she doubted it, but because a part of her still couldn't believe he remembered her at all. 10 years ago, she'd been by his side building this company. Before the marriage, before the layoff, before the money dried up, and her pride took a job scrubbing the floors of her own past. She had chosen silence to protect Maya's future. Now, silence was the sharpest weapon she had. Nathan, meanwhile, was busy charming his way through yet another investor call, half listening to his assistant mumble about an upcoming audit, which he waved off. The numbers always worked in his favor, especially when no one looked too closely. But someone had, and she wasn't just looking, she had access. That night, after the building emptied, Isabel returned to the boardroom alone. No cart, no gloves, just her and that leather folder. She placed it at the head of the table, ran her fingers along the edge like she had 100 times before. Back when she sat here in heels, not sneakers, back when people asked for her opinion instead of her silence. She pulled a single document from the folder, the original incorporation paperwork. Her name, in faded ink, was on the early drafts. Backdated, buried, forgotten, but not erased. Tomorrow, she would mop the floors like always. She'd smile politely and keep her head down. Let Nathan believe he was winning. She would let him have one last good day. Because when Thursday came, Isabel wouldn't be cleaning the boardroom. She'd be sitting at the head of it. Isabel arrived early the next morning, earlier than usual. The building was still quiet, the automatic lights blinking awake as she stepped through the service entrance, cart rolling steadily behind her. She wore the same uniform, same sensible shoes, same pulled-back hair. But something was different, not in how she walked, but in why. She moved with purpose, not the hurried, invisible shuffle of someone trying to stay out of sight, but the focused precision of a woman counting down. In the break room, she filled her mop bucket and stirred in the detergent. The smell of lemon disinfectant masked the weight of everything she wasn't saying. By the time the first floor came alive with coffee runs and elevator dings, Isabel was already in the executive wing, wiping fingerprints from glass. Nathan Kessler stepped off the elevator mid-conversation. "No, I don't care if legal's nervous. I said bury it until after Q4. He paused when he saw her, just long enough to catch her eyes, then look away like she was static on the screen. "Still here?" he muttered as he passed. "Just finishing up." He didn't respond. Isabel let him go. For now. She made her way down the hallway and stopped at the framed founder's portrait hanging near the boardroom. Elias Vale's signature stared back at her beneath a glass plaque. No one had noticed how often she stood there, how long she looked. "Excuse me," came a voice behind her. A young woman, clipboard in hand, sleek ponytail, eyes scanning a checklist. "You're not allowed to be this far down the executive corridor without a clearance band." "I have one," Isabel said. The girl tilted her head, skeptical. "From which department?" Isabel smiled. "Operations." That answer was technically true, and technically not her problem. The assistant moved on. Isabel slipped into the janitor's closet and checked her tablet again. Wednesday, 9:47 a.m., 1 day left. Downstairs, in the second-floor lounge, Maya sat quietly with her tablet, sketching with her fingers on the screen. A receptionist brought her a muffin. She thanked her with the kind of manners Isabel had insisted on teaching, even when they had nothing but peanut butter and tap water. The receptionist smiled. "You know, you look just like someone I used to see at the company gala years ago." "I can't remember her name." Maya didn't look up. "My mom says we don't tell people who we used to be." The receptionist blinked, unsure how to respond. Maya shrugged. "It's easier that way." Back upstairs, Nathan entered the boardroom and sat in his usual seat at the head of the table. The CFO joined him, sweat gathering behind his collar. "There's a problem," the CFO whispered. "Someone sent an inquiry to the audit team about the Q2 transfers. They're asking for documentation we don't have." Nathan didn't look up from his phone. "Then fabricate it. That's what we pay interns for. We already tried. It's not just finance asking anymore." Elias Vale's internal login was active last night. Nathan's jaw tensed. "I thought he was in Switzerland." "No one's seen him." Nathan rose from his chair, pacing. "We need to contain this. If the founder's involved, that means lawyers are next. Keep everyone quiet and find out who leaked it." The CFO hesitated. "Some employees are whispering about the janitor. They say she used to be someone." Nathan laughed, short and mean. "Jesus, this place is losing its mind." Still, he didn't sit back down. By the time Isabel reached the 5th floor again, the buzz had changed. Assistants were whispering. Mid-level staff were glancing her way. But not with contempt, with something closer to caution. No one stopped her when she passed the reception desk. No one questioned her when she walked into the elevator with a cart full of paper towels and disinfectant. Inside, she hit the button for the executive floor and smiled. They weren't afraid of her. Not yet. But soon, they'd have reason to be. She still had the uniform, still had the badge that gave her access to restricted spaces, still had the calluses from pushing this cart through grief, debt, and shame. But what she also had now, what none of them knew, was power. Legal power, voting power, executive power, and soon, the seat at the head of the table. The next morning, Isabel lingered outside the boardroom before her shift officially started. She stood near the polished glass wall, listening. Not eavesdropping, just waiting. Inside, Nathan's voice filled the space like smoke. She's just a janitor, for God's sake. Why are we even discussing her? That was the third time her name, or lack of it, had come up this week. Younger analyst had asked a simple question. Who's the woman always working late near the audit terminals? And suddenly, Isabel had become a topic Nathan couldn't seem to let go of. She moved on before the door opened, wheels of her cart gliding smoothly toward the next hallway. The key to invisibility was rhythm. Never stay too long. Never pause when you're being watched. But people were watching now, especially one man she hadn't seen in years. Isabel reached the east stairwell, opened the heavy door, and stopped. There, leaning against the handrail with a coffee in hand, was Elias Vale. Older than when she last saw him, yes, but unmistakable. No entourage, no security, just a quiet billionaire in worn shoes and a soft gray jacket. "I thought I'd find you here," he said. She didn't reply right away. "I almost didn't come," he added, staring out the window. "I figured maybe I owed you more than just a signature." Isabel looked at him for a long moment. Her voice came quiet, but direct. "You think showing up fixes everything?" "No," he said, "but I figured you'd be less mad if I showed up empty-handed." He held up the coffee, offering it. She took it, against her better judgment. They sat together on the landing, silence stretching between them like a long hallway. "I read the report," Elias finally said. "What Nathan's been doing. The embezzlement. The falsified R&D numbers. You were right to flag it." "He's gotten bolder," Isabel murmured, "and lazy. You think he knows? He suspects someone's watching. But he'd never guess it's me. He thinks janitors don't read spreadsheets." Elias cracked the hint of a smile. "Still using behavioral analysis in silence, huh?" Isabel shrugged. "Old habits die hard. I'm staying in the building. Suite 500. I'll be in the shadows until the board votes. But you'll have my full proxy at the table. They'll see the signature on the documents by tomorrow." Isabel sipped the coffee. Bitter, dark roast. Just like she used to drink, back when they built this company together. Back before the world took sides, and she was left on the wrong one. "I don't want a title," she said. "You won't need one. You already have the votes." Isabel rose slowly, leaving the cup behind. "I don't want power for revenge, Elias. I just want it long enough to clean up the mess, and then leave the place better than I found it." He nodded once. "That's the difference between you and him." Later that day, Maya was sitting cross-legged in the hallway with a coloring book when one of the junior associates approached her. "You always wait here?" the woman asked, friendly but curious. Maya looked up. "My mom says I'm safest where people forget to look." The woman crouched. "You're smart. What's your mom do here?" Maya blinked. "She used to run this place. Now she just cleans it." There was no malice in her tone, just fact. Like the sky was blue or juice boxes were better with straws. The associate froze. "Wait, what do you mean she used to run it?" Maya shrugged. "She helped build the company." Before Nathan, the woman stood, clearly rattled. She murmured something about needing to check a document and walked off in a hurry. By afternoon, the whispers had multiplied. A name resurfaced on an old internal memo. Isabel Rivera, Senior Advisor, Operations Division, dated 8 years back. The system listed her as resigned, but no one could find a resignation letter. And no one had noticed the signature match between Elias Vale's current proxy paperwork and the janitor who pushed the cart past their doors every day. Isabel returned to the lobby just before sunset. She checked in on Maya, who looked up from her tablet. "Someone asked me what you do here," Maya said. "I told them the truth." Isabel raised an eyebrow. "And what truth is that?" "That you used to run things. And you probably will again." Isabel knelt beside her. "That's not a secret we throw around, kiddo." "Why?" Maya asked. "Are you scared they'll stop underestimating you?" Isabel stared at her daughter. That sharp, unfiltered wisdom. That fire. "No," she whispered. "I'm scared they'll start paying attention too soon." She stood up, checked the time, and headed for the elevators. Thursday was approaching fast. And when it arrived, she wouldn't be pushing the cart anymore. She'd be pushing papers and people into the truth they tried to bury. Nathan stood at the glass wall of the executive floor, arms folded, jaw tight. Behind him, a team of junior analysts tapped nervously at their keyboards, whispering about inconsistencies in the audit trail. He wasn't listening to them. He was watching her. Isabel. She moved past the hallway outside the boardroom like she always did. Quiet, unnoticed by most. But something about her presence had started to itch. He couldn't explain why, but in the last few days, the office had shifted around her. People paused when she entered a room. A few even stood a little straighter. Nathan turned to his assistant. "Run a background check on the janitor." "The janitor?" The assistant blinked. "She's not just a janitor. Find her file. I want to know where she came from and how the hell she ended up here." The assistant nodded and scurried off, already regretting the question. Downstairs, Isabel reviewed the floor log on her tablet while Maya doodled in the corner. The girl's latest drawing was a woman standing on a stage, papers in hand, a spotlight above her. "Is that me?" Isabel asked. "No," Maya said with a grin. "That's you tomorrow. You think I'll need a spotlight?" Maya tilted her head. "No, but I think they will. Otherwise, they'll miss what's coming." Isabel smiled, though something tightened in her chest. She was raising a girl who saw through everything. No masks, no noise, just truth. And the truth was, time was almost up. Nathan paced the boardroom, hissing at the CFO. "The rumor is spreading. Someone said she was in the founding documents." "That can't be true." The CFO was sweating. "We're still digging." But the IT logs show founder account access came from inside the building. If it wasn't Elias, then someone used his credentials, Nathan snapped. "There's more," the CFO added carefully. "Legal received a notification this morning. There's a scheduled review of ownership rights at tomorrow's board session." Nathan froze. "What?" "Someone with founder-level access submitted a proxy motion. Full control rights." Nathan's heart dropped. "Who signed it?" The CFO hesitated. "The document is sealed. Founder privilege." He swore under his breath. "Find Elias." Now Elias was nowhere to be found. His suite was registered, yes, but no keycard access. No outgoing calls. No known movement. And yet, things were shifting. On the company's internal server, Isabel's name had been reactivated. Her permissions were expanding, quietly. The system didn't flag it, because she still had the credentials. Credentials she had never fully surrendered. The title had been removed, but not the access. And now, the system recognized her again. Not as janitor, as operations architect. Isabel moved through the executive lounge later that evening. Nathan was gone. Most of the staff had cleared out. She stopped at the coffee machine and made 2 cups, one black, one with 2 sugars. She carried them to the boardroom, placed them on the table, hers where Nathan usually sat, and the other where she used to. Then she pulled out a pen from her pocket and signed her name on a blank notepad in her old handwriting. It felt like reclaiming a room the world had told her she never belonged in. She didn't linger. She didn't rehearse. She just left the cup in front of her old chair, steam rising like a whisper of memory. Tomorrow, they'd know who really held the keys. Nathan's assistant returned later that night, pale and shaken. A manila file folder trembled in her hands. He ripped it open and stared. Isabel Rivera, former title, Senior Operations Director, Early Advisor to Vailtech Founder. Elias Vail resigned. No formal record, submitted company stock status. Frozen founder shares. No expiration. Nathan crushed the folder in his hand. He wasn't dealing with a janitor. He was dealing with a ghost from the company's past, one who had never truly left. He leaned over his desk, breathing hard. She planned this. Down in the service hallway, Isabel opened her locker one last time. Inside, her uniform, her gloves, her name tag, still pinned in place. She folded them neatly and placed them in a paper bag. Then she pulled out a blazer from the bottom drawer. Dark gray, crisp, timeless. She buttoned it, smoothed the sleeves, and looked at her reflection in the locker's metal door. Same face, same woman, but no longer hidden. Isabel Rivera had returned. And this time, she wasn't asking permission. The boardroom was full. Every chair was taken, every suit crisp, every gaze trained toward the head of the table, toward Nathan. He adjusted his cufflinks with forced calm, but his eyes betrayed the tremor beneath. This wasn't a standard Thursday briefing. This was a containment meeting. The audit team had sent a formal inquiry at 7:03 a.m. By 8:30, compliance had flagged 2 anomalies. By 9 o'clock, external legal counsel had requested board presence for a sensitive matter of shareholder structure. And by 9:15, a seat was reserved for someone no one expected. Nathan tapped the table. We'll keep this brief. There have been some miscommunications regarding access logs. We are working with IT to... The door opened. Isabel Rivera walked in, not with her cart, not in her uniform, in a blazer, tailored, dark gray. She carried no mop, no gloves, just a black folder and a name badge clipped to her chest. The room went silent. She crossed the floor slowly, heels echoing against polished tile. For the first time, no one looked past her. No one ignored her. They watched her with eyes that didn't know what to think, eyes that once dismissed her. She placed her folder at the center of the table. I'm here under founder proxy authorization, representing Mr. Elias Vail, she said calmly. The documents are notarized and filed with corporate counsel. Nathan stood up, knocking his chair slightly. This is a closed session. You can't beat... Isabel didn't flinch. I can. She opened the folder. Inside, the proxy transfer form, signed and sealed. The room collectively inhaled. I'm here to observe the audit disclosures and to clarify chain of command misalignments that have endangered investor confidence. You're not on the board, Nathan snapped. No, but I hold voting rights greater than your position allows, including the right to review operational control, especially in the event of fraud. A woman from legal leaned forward. Mr. Kessler, the documents appear legitimate. I've reviewed the signature against archival samples. Proxy control is valid. Nathan's mouth opened, but no sound came out. 30 minutes later, the meeting adjourned in stunned silence. Isabel walked out the same way she came in, silent, steady, eyes forward. She didn't stop until she reached the elevator. She pressed the button, waited. The door opened. Maya was inside, sitting on the bench with her tablet and a juice box. "Hi," she said. "Did you win?" Isabel exhaled slowly. "Not yet. But I made them listen, upstairs." Nathan paced his office like a man trapped in a sinking ship. "She's bluffing." "She has to be," he muttered. The CFO shook his head. "No bluff. Elias gave her his full proxy. She's not just visiting. She's—" Stepping in, Nathan turned toward the window, his reflection fractured by sunlight. "I fired her. I humiliated her. That kind of person doesn't just—" "Wait." The CFO hesitated. "You didn't fire her. HR never processed it. She never technically worked for you. She existed in a space between contractor and shadow." Nathan's breath caught. "She planned this." That afternoon, Isabel returned to the mezzanine. She stood beneath the founder's portrait, the same one she'd cleaned for months. Her name wasn't on the wall. Not yet. But her presence had carved itself into the marble floors in ways no plaque ever could. Elias appeared beside her. "You came in exactly the way you left," he said quietly. "Through the side door?" she asked. "No. With your head up." They didn't say anything else for a moment. Then Elias added, "Nathan's spiraling. You sure you want to be the one to finish this?" "I'm not here to destroy him," she replied. "I'm here to fix what he broke. And after?" She looked toward the boardroom glass. "Then I leave it better than I found it." By 5 p.m., word had spread. Staff whispered. Old memos were pulled. Screenshots from internal archives circled through encrypted group chats. There she was, Isabel Rivera, in a 10-year-old team photo, standing next to Elias, arm's length from the first whiteboard that birthed Vailtech's core strategy. People remembered, not because she reminded them, but because now they had to remember. She wasn't the janitor anymore. She was the returning architect, and the building remembered her blueprints. The morning after the boardroom reveal, the building buzzed with questions no one knew how to ask aloud. Isabel's name was suddenly everywhere. In whispers, in archived files, in hastily forwarded emails. Her photo had resurfaced from an old investor packet. Young, confident, standing beside Elias Vale with a tablet in her hand and command in her posture. And yet, for over a year, she'd pushed a janitor's cart. "How did no one notice?" someone muttered in the break room. "She cleaned my desk last week," said another. "She was watching everything." "She's been here longer than half the board," said a third. "She probably knew this place better than any of us." The quiet hum of respect was building. Not just because of her past, but because she'd said nothing, demanded nothing, and yet walked into a war room and silenced it with a signature. Nathan sat stiffly at his desk, pale and pulseless. The legal team's response had confirmed the worst. Isabel's proxy rights were not only valid, they were active for the next 72 hours. In that time, she could audit anything, block any move, even call for a vote of no confidence. He turned to the window, hands shaking. Outside, staff were walking a little straighter. Conversations paused when he entered the room, not in deference, but in uncertainty. He wasn't the center anymore. She was. Isabel stepped out of the elevator just past 10 a.m., blazer pressed, folder in hand. But this time, she didn't go to the boardroom. She went to the operations floor, the place she once built from nothing. People parted for her without needing to be told. No one stopped her. No one asked why she was there. She made her way to a long-forgotten corner office, once hers, now a glorified storage room. She unlocked it with her old passcode. It still worked. Inside, the same desk, same cracked leather chair. Dust gathered on the windowsill, but in the far drawer was a silver nameplate. Isabel Rivera, Director, Operations. She placed it back on the desk. Not as a claim, but as a reminder. A woman entered quietly behind her. Mid-30s, Nervous energy. Miss Rivera? Isabel is fine, she said. I just wanted to say, I looked you up. You wrote the original procedural flow for our onboarding model, didn't you? I did. The woman smiled. It still works. We just renamed it. Isabel didn't smile back, but she nodded slowly. Thank you, the woman said, backing out. Alone again, Isabel opened her folder. Inside were the reports Nathan thought no one had flagged. Misallocated funds, phantom contractors, shell invoices. She laid them on the desk, one by one, arranging them like evidence in a case she'd waited years to build. It wasn't about revenge. It was about stewardship. She hadn't returned to take over. She'd returned to take responsibility for the company, for the mess, for what she helped create. Meanwhile, Maya was in the mezzanine cafe, sipping from her juice box and watching a cartoon on mute. One of the mid-level VPs approached, cautiously. You're Maya, right? He asked. She nodded. He crouched down. Your mom? She's really something. I know. What's it like seeing her do all this? Maya shrugged. She used to read spreadsheets like bedtime stories. He blinked. Seriously? She said the numbers always told the truth, just not always to the right people. The VP stood slowly, rattled. Tell her I said thank you, he added. Maya didn't look up. You should tell her yourself. Upstairs, Nathan paced the hallway before the glass conference room. Isabel was inside with Elias on video call, flanked by legal and a silent HR rep. He stormed in without knocking. You made your point, he snapped. Congratulations. You embarrassed me. You flexed. Now what? Isabel looked up. Now I finish cleaning. You think this company will trust you? You wore gloves and pushed a mop for a year. And in that year, I learned everything I needed to know, she said quietly, about who people become when they think no one's watching. Nathan sneered. You're not a threat to me. I'm not trying to be, she said, voice steady. I'm trying to be the one who remembers what this company was. Before your ego infected it, he turned, but she stopped him with a final line. I don't need your permission to fix what you broke. I already have the keys. That night, as the building emptied, Isabel sat alone in the reclaimed office. The reports were ready. The board vote was scheduled, and her silence, once mistaken for submission, had now become the loudest voice in the company. Tomorrow, it would speak for everyone she'd once stood below, and it would echo. The conference room blinds were closed, but the tension still leaked through the walls. Inside, Isabel sat at the long glass table with her folder open, flanked by Elias on a secured video call, and two board members who had been silent for most of the morning. This isn't about revenge, Isabel said, not raising her voice. It's about stabilization. The company's bloodline was diverted. I'm just realigning it. On the screen, Elias nodded. You have full voting control for the next 48 hours. The legal framework is in place. If you want to remove Nathan, you can one of the board members shifted. And if she doesn't, then I'll do it myself, Elias said. But not as cleanly. Isabel looked down at the summary page in her folder. Misappropriation of discretionary funds, employee silencing contracts, severance abuse. It wasn't just financial, it was cultural rot. She stood and closed the folder. I'm not here to fire him today, she said. I'm here to prepare the company to survive without him tomorrow. Downstairs, Nathan was on the phone, pacing like a caged wolf. No, you listen to me. She's not a threat. She's a distraction. His voice dropped. She's bluffing. The board won't back her long term. She'll implode under pressure. Give me a day and I'll spin it. But the man on the other end of the call didn't answer right away. Finally, You lost the floor, Nathan. And from what I hear, the janitor is running it now. The line went dead. Nathan's fingers curled into a fist. Back in the mezzanine, Maya watched from her usual spot as executives passed by her like ghosts. No one noticed the child on the bench with headphones on and a silent screen in her lap. But Maya was listening. She heard the words that mattered. Isabel's the one holding Elias's shares. She walked into that boardroom like she never left. The CFO froze the misused accounts. She signed the order Maya tapped on her screen. A text to her mom. They're scared. You're winning. That evening, Isabel entered the service corridor for the last time. Her cart still stood by the closet. Clean, organized, waiting. But she didn't touch it. Instead, she removed her ID badge and clipped it to the hook beside the schedule log. She took a deep breath and whispered, "Thank you." Not to the job, but to the silence, to the years that taught her patience, to the years that made her invisible, so she could return, unannounced. She didn't leave through the service door. She walked through the front lobby, past the receptionist who now stood when she saw her, past the elevators that no longer closed before she could step inside, and into the executive suite, where her old nameplate had been polished and returned to her door. Nathan was already there, waiting. "You can have your symbolic victory," he said as she approached, "but you can't sustain it. You're not built for this anymore." Isabel didn't answer. He stepped closer. "What happens when the pressure builds? When the lawsuits hit? You think people will follow a ghost?" She looked at him. Not angry, not flinching, just still. "I don't need them to follow me," she said. "I just need to give them a place where they remember how to stand." She turned the handle to her new office and walked inside. Behind her, Nathan's reflection warped across the glass, smaller than it had ever looked. At home that night, Isabel tucked Maya into bed. The girl curled beneath the blanket, smiling. "You did it," she said sleepily. Isabel brushed her hair back. "Not yet. But you're almost there, right?" Isabel nodded. "Tomorrow, we start building again." Maya grinned. "Can I come help?" Isabel laughed softly. "You already are." She kissed her forehead and turned off the light. In the dark, Isabel stood at the doorway a moment longer, thinking not of Nathan or the boardroom or the signatures, but of every quiet night she'd scrubbed a floor, wondering if this moment would ever come. And knowing now, she wouldn't waste it. Isabel stood before the floor-to-ceiling windows of the executive suite just after dawn. The skyline was still bleeding gold into the glass, and the city below hadn't yet caught up to what was about to unfold. On the desk behind her sat a thick envelope. Inside, her final motion. Today she wasn't submitting it as a warning. Today, it was execution. She turned as Elias stepped into the room, quiet as always. His suit jacket hung open, his presence understated. But his expression, it was watching her like she was the one holding the detonator. "You're certain?" he asked. "I waited," she replied. "I listened." "And I gave him a chance to step down." Elias nodded. "He didn't take it." "No," she said. "And now he'll learn what silence sounds like when it echoes." Downstairs, Nathan barked at his assistant while jabbing at his tablet. "Two directors are waffling," he growled. "They were with me yesterday. What changed?" "They met with Isabel privately last night," the assistant whispered. "No one knows what was said. But afterward, legal scheduled an emergency compliance review." "She triggered it," Nathan scoffed. "She's bluffing." "She wants to scare me into resigning." But even as he said it, his voice was slipping. His shirt collar was damp. His usual smirk had disappeared. The assistant handed him a sealed envelope. "What's this?" "It's from her." He opened it. A single line printed on elegant letterhead. You built walls. I built exits below it. The official motion for his removal. Effective immediately, pending board confirmation in 2 hours. Upstairs, Isabel was already meeting with the internal media team. No spin, no headlines, just a statement. Vailtech is returning to the hands of those who remember why it was built. She read it aloud, signed it, then folded it cleanly and handed it to comms. As she walked to the boardroom, employees stood from desks, not in choreographed applause, but out of quiet respect. The kind that ripples when people feel something real moving through their halls. She passed Nathan's office. The door was shut. For once, no shouting came from behind it. In the boardroom, Isabel stood at the head of the table. No projection screens, no theatrics, just her, the directors, and a sealed packet before each seat. She spoke calmly. Inside, you'll find the full financial records from the last 4 quarters. You'll also find my resignation. Pending one condition, the room shifted. I will step aside, but not until this company is no longer in the hands of men who treat janitors like ghosts and founders like liabilities. She paused. And if that requires burning this place down to the concrete, I have the matches. A silence stretched. Then a director said, We've already reviewed the motion. The vote is unanimous. Another added, Nathan's access has been revoked. Isabel nodded once. No victory speech, no celebration, just a breath. Then, let HR handle the rest. An hour later, Nathan exited the building for the last time. He said nothing to the gathered staff. Didn't look at Isabel. Didn't even glance at the cameras, now turning toward the building's new face. He simply vanished behind the tinted windows of a waiting car. And the building exhaled. That evening, Isabel stood in the boardroom again. Alone now. She placed one final thing at the center of the table. Her badge. The janitor badge. She didn't throw it. She didn't burn it. She just left it there. A reminder. Power doesn't always enter loudly. Sometimes it mops floors, listens in silence, waits. Maya entered a few moments later, holding a juice box and a small plant. For your new desk, she said, placing the pot beside Isabel's folder. Isabel knelt. Did you see what happened today? Maya nodded. He left. You stayed. That's not winning, Maya. Then what is it? Isabel smiled. It's rebuilding. From the inside out, Maya thought about that. Are you staying here forever now? No, Isabel said softly. Just long enough to make sure the next woman who walks in, no matter what she's wearing, never has to fight for the right to be seen. They stood together by the window, watching the lights blink on across the city. In the room behind them, the boardroom lights stayed off, but the table glowed. Because power, real power, had changed hands, and it had been quiet about it until now. Monday morning, no press conference, no corporate memo splash, no mandatory all hands with a new CEO smiling like a billboard. Instead, Isabel Rivera walked through the front doors of Vailtech in jeans and a navy blouse, carrying nothing but a notebook and a coffee. The receptionist stood as she entered. Ms. Rivera, your office. I'm not using the glass suite, Isabel said. Convert it into a collaborative workspace. I'll take the corner team pod. The receptionist blinked. That's by the break room. I know. She smiled politely and kept walking. Every eye followed her. Not with fear, not even with awe, with curiosity. The kind that makes people lean forward and wonder what happens next. On the 3rd floor, the operations pod sat quiet as usual. A ring of cubicles, a faded bulletin board, a coffee station humming beside a slightly cracked microwave. Isabel placed her notebook on the empty desk near the window, sat down, logged in with her reinstated credentials. No fanfare, But the ripple had already started. By noon, 3 junior analysts had asked to shadow her on lunch breaks. 2 engineers left sticky notes on her screen that read, "Thank you for coming back." She didn't reply. Not yet. She was still watching. Across the building, an older custodian named Clara wheeled her cart toward the service elevator when Isabel stopped her. "I owe you," Isabel said. Clara frowned. "For what?" "For never asking questions when I cried in the stairwell. For covering my shift when Maya was sick. For treating me like more than my uniform." Clara's eyes softened. "We don't survive unless we see each other." Isabel handed her a sealed envelope. "Effective tomorrow, your title will be Facilities Lead, with a 40% raise. If anyone asks why, tell them I watched how you led in silence." Clara said nothing, but tears welled fast. Isabel touched her shoulder and moved on. That afternoon, she walked into a strategy meeting uninvited, not as an act of power, but as an act of memory. The room hushed as she entered. "I'm not here to take over," she said, placing her notebook on the table. "I'm here because the last time this company was healthy, this room was louder, with disagreement, not compliance." No one moved. "Let's try that again," Isabel said calmly. "Who disagrees with the Q3 restructuring plan?" A hesitant hand went up, then another, and for the first time in years, the room started breathing again. Later, she took the long way down to the mezzanine where Maya sat sketching on her tablet. The drawing this time? A table with many chairs, some filled, some not. In the center, a woman placing her janitor's badge next to a flower pot. "You remember details," Isabel said, kneeling beside her. Maya grinned. "I pay attention. Always have." Isabel looked at the drawing longer than usual. Then she whispered, "I'm not staying forever." "I know," Maya said, "but they need you now." Back upstairs, Nathan's old office had already been stripped. His nameplate gone. His leather chair repurposed. Isabel entered quietly, not to take anything, but to place something. She left a copy of the original Vailtech founding principles, etched in thick paper, framed with gold trim, on the desk. Then she placed her resignation letter next to it, unsent. For now, this wasn't about how long she stayed. It was about what she rebuilt while she was here. That evening, Isabel wrote a short internal post and published it to the company portal. "Titles are temporary. Respect is earned through silence, seen through action, and remembered through care. I wore gloves. I pushed a cart. I learned. Now I teach again. You were never invisible. I was just waiting to see who could see me first." Within 30 minutes, the comment section filled with gratitude. But Isabel didn't check it. She was already packing her notebook for tomorrow, because tomorrow wasn't about vengeance. It was about leaving blueprints and making sure the doors didn't close behind her. The first article dropped at 6:12 a.m. Headline: "The Janitor Who Became the Power Behind Vailtech's Silent Coup." The photo showed Isabel standing by the lobby window, sunlight haloing her face, her name badge half visible. She hadn't posed for it. Someone had taken it the day after Nathan left, without flash, without permission. By 7 a.m., it was everywhere. LinkedIn, Twitter, Reddit, group chats full of middle managers and interns who'd once whispered her name now shouted it. The public didn't just read the article, they felt it. Inside Vailtech, the effect was immediate. The receptionist's phone rang nonstop with media requests. HR was flooded with emails titled Rivera Protocol and Culture Reset. But Isabel, she entered the building like always. No security detail, no handlers. She walked past the PR team pacing in the hallway and stopped only to ask, "Did they spell my name right?" "They did," someone stammered. "Good," she said, and kept walking. On the operations floor, the young analyst who had once asked if she needed help with a mop now stood to offer her a seat. "I read everything," she blurted out. "You built the audit framework. You designed our infrastructure scale model. You—" Isabel held up a hand gently. "And I pushed a cart." "Both are true." The analyst swallowed. How did you do it?" "Stay silent that long?" Isabel smiled. "Sometimes the lesson is worth more than the spotlight. And sometimes silence is a stage, too." Later that morning, Elias called. "Your inbox is on fire," he said dryly. "And now everyone wants to feature you on every panel in tech." "I'm not interested in being a symbol," she replied. He chuckled. "You already are." "I'd rather be a standard." "Then set one." Loudly, Isabel walked into a staff meeting mid-morning, unannounced again. This time, no one flinched. She approached the whiteboard, wrote in clean strokes, "What we build without power reveals who we are. What we protect with power reveals who we've become." She turned around. "This company's legacy won't be the products. It won't be the quarterly wins. It'll be the way we chose to see each other." Someone clapped, then another. But Isabel raised a hand. "Don't applaud this. Live it. Carry it. That's the only way it lasts after I'm gone." And with that, she walked out. Not to command, to observe, to teach through motion, not volume. Outside, a journalist waited near the entrance. Young, breathless, microphone in hand. "Ms. Rivera, just a quote, please. How does it feel to go from janitor to the most talked-about leader in corporate strategy?" Isabel paused. "I didn't go from anything," she said. "I was both the whole time. You just didn't see it." And she walked past him, unbothered. By mid-afternoon, news reached old contacts, people from before, former colleagues, past competitors, investors who once doubted her. Even her ex-husband's law firm had posted a reshared article with an uncomfortable caption. "Power comes in unexpected uniforms." Isabel read none of them. She was reviewing facility safety budgets and approving a proposal to expand childcare coverage for single parents on staff. No press release, just quiet change. On her way out, she stopped at Clara's new office. The door had no nameplate yet, but the light was on. Clara stood near the desk, sorting supplies, a little overwhelmed. Isabel stepped in and placed a small object on the desk, her old mop key. "I won't need this anymore," she said. Clara smiled. "What should I do with it?" "Keep it," Isabel said. "Some doors only open for the ones who clean the hinges." That night, Maya sat beside her on the apartment floor. Legs crossed, a blanket around her shoulders. "You're famous now," Maya said. "They made a TikTok about you. You're in a slideshow with Beyoncé." Isabel laughed, rubbing her temple. "God help us. You're gonna be remembered forever." Isabel's smile faded into something softer. "I don't want to be remembered. I want the lesson to be remembered," Maya yawned. "Which one?" "That power doesn't come from who speaks the loudest," Isabel whispered. "It comes from who still sees the room when no one sees them back." Maya nodded, eyes fluttering. And as the girl drifted to sleep, Isabel looked out the window at the city. Alive with noise, flashing screens and headlines she didn't ask for. She closed the curtain. Because her story had never needed a spotlight. It just needed a place to begin. By Thursday, the building felt different. Not louder, not busier, just aligned. Departments that rarely spoke were now sitting in mixed-floor meetings. Junior staff volunteered feedback without glancing for approval. The break room door, once a place of hierarchy, swung open both ways. And yet, Isabel Rivera had barely said a word. She no longer needed to. The system was adjusting to a new rhythm, One she had composed silently over a year of scrubbing the corners everyone else ignored. In her shared pod space, Isabel sipped coffee from a paper cup, surrounded by printed reports. She didn't sit behind glass. She never moved to the penthouse suite. Instead, she'd reallocated the corner office as a mentorship hub. No locks, no walls, just an open calendar and a long table. Today, it was empty. She preferred it that way. Clarity needed quiet. Elias called just past 9. "You're trending again," he said, voice wry. "Apparently, you started a movement. 5 companies have named internal janitor scholarships after you." Isabel didn't look up from her notes. "Symbols make people feel better. Systems make people work better. You've built both," he said. "And now, they're asking how long you'll stay." She closed her folder. "Not long." A pause. "You sure?" Elias asked. "I wasn't meant to live at the top," she said, "just to clear a path through the rot." That afternoon, she met with the company's leadership development cohort, a dozen rising managers seated in a circle, expecting a lecture. Isabel sat among them. "Tell me something you missed," she said. They looked around, confused. "In your job, in your hallway, in someone else's eyes. Tell me what you stopped seeing." A man raised his hand slowly. "I haven't spoken to the security team in 6 months. I never even asked their names." A woman followed. "I didn't know the cafeteria staff rotated shifts based on childcare needs. I just assumed they were always available one by one." Hands lifted. Blind spots exposed. Soft regrets voiced. Isabel didn't shame them. She nodded after each one. Quiet approval. Then she said, "If we can see what we missed, we can rebuild what we never noticed." They didn't clap. They listened. That was enough. By evening, she walked the perimeter of the building one last time. Not to check for flaws, to say goodbye. At the west stairwell, she paused, ran her fingers along the railing she used to lean on between mopping sessions. The place she cried once, twice, then stood taller after. In her pocket, the unsigned resignation letter. It would be time soon. Clara found her in the service corridor just after 6. "You're leaving," Clara said. "I am. Why now?" Isabel leaned against the wall, hands in her pockets. "Because they're ready to remember themselves," Clara hesitated. "You changed this place." "No," Isabel corrected. "They did. I just made it uncomfortable to forget who they were." Clara stepped closer and handed her a small box. Inside, her old gloves, washed, folded, and pressed between tissue paper. "For memory," Clara said. Isabel's throat tightened. "For proof." That night, Maya climbed into Isabel's lap, hugging her close. "They're going to miss you." "Then I did my job right. Are you sad?" Isabel paused. "No," she whispered. "I'm just full." Maya pulled the covers to her chin. "Where will we go next?" "Wherever someone's been told they don't belong." At midnight, Isabel returned to the office one last time. She didn't need a badge anymore. Everyone knew her name. The security guard tipped his head and opened the door without asking. She walked to the boardroom. Lights off, table untouched. From her bag, she pulled a sealed envelope, laid it at the center of the table. To the next woman who walks in and gets told she's in the wrong room. You're exactly where they need you to be, just not for the reasons they think. Keep walking, they'll follow, eventually. Isabel Rivera. The sun rose slower that morning. Or maybe Isabel just noticed it more. From the Hilltop Park 2 blocks from Vailtech, she could see the building clearly, its mirrored glass catching every ray like it had something to prove. But Isabel didn't feel power when she looked at it. She felt closure. Maya sat beside her, swinging her legs on the bench, munching on a piece of toast they'd picked up from the corner cafe. "Are you sure we don't have to go back?" she asked between bites. Isabel smiled. We already did what we needed to do. They're gonna call again, aren't they? They already have. Isabel chuckled. Panel invites, industry awards, podcasts. Are you going to say yes? No. Why? Isabel leaned back, eyes on the skyline. Because the story is over. And the lesson is loud enough now, inside Vailtech. The envelope she'd left sat unopened for hours, almost reverently. Eventually, a junior manager found it, read it quietly, and placed it on the glass wall of the main conference room. Others paused to read. Some took photos. A few cried. But no one removed it. Below it, someone taped a handwritten sign. The Rivera Room. Later that week, Clara opened a surprise delivery in her new office. A polished wooden box with brass hinges. Inside, the old janitor badge, cleaned and framed, a silver plaque. She remembered us before we remembered ourselves. A sealed note from Isabel. If silence ever returns, this opens doors louder than keys. Clara placed it on her shelf beside her new job title. Facilities director, full health benefits. A budget she now controlled. All because someone once saw her work in silence and said nothing until it mattered. Across the city, whispers of Isabel's story reached unexpected places. A university professor began her lecture with Isabel's quote about power and who it forgets. A labor union used her story in its training materials. A middle school teacher printed the headline and taped it to a student's locker with the note, "Don't let them define you." But Isabel didn't follow any of it. She was in a quiet garden with Maya, repotting a small succulent the girl insisted had grown more confident lately. One evening, Elias sent her a photo, the new Vailtech entry badge. No CEO title, no president, just a single line beneath the name, employee. Isabel replied with one word. Perfect. She didn't need a legacy. She needed a mirror that would remind those left behind of what they almost missed, that sometimes power doesn't arrive with noise. It arrives with a rag, a mop, and a memory, and stays long enough to clean more than just the floors. A month later, Maya found her folding a stack of donated clothes for a shelter drop-off. Are you going to do it again? She asked. Do what? Disappear into a job until someone remembers you built the building? Isabel laughed. No. This time, I'll be there from the beginning. Still in disguise? Always, Isabel said. But next time, they'll know better than to underestimate the woman who's cleaning their windows. Maya grinned. I'll come too. I can draw the next floor plan. Isabel looked at her daughter. So bright, so bold. You won't have to fix what I fixed. You'll build something no one dares break. As the sun set behind them, Isabel picked up her phone, opened a fresh page in her notes, and typed 6 words. Start small. Stay quiet. Watch everything. She saved it. Closed her eyes and let the world keep turning. Subscribe and don't miss our next story. Trust me, you'll feel it. And tell me in the comments, what injustice should we tackle next?